about some interesting facts. All the history that I was going to cover has already been covered. So I wanted to, first of all, welcome you to this presentation. And if we go to the next slide, I would like to tell you and concentrate a little bit more on some interesting facts about Peru that you perhaps may not have known. And if there's anything that you leave with us today, is maybe a couple of these interesting facts. It's not full screen yet, but I can move on if we need to. Okay, so some interesting facts about Peru. Honestly, the potato didn't come from Ireland. The potato didn't come from Idaho. The potato came from Peru. Absolutely. It's the birthplace of the humble potato, as we Peruvians call it. So it is not surprising that there are more than 4,000 varieties found in Peru. These tasty tubers have been domesticated in this part of the world for at least 8,000 years. Okay, that's one fact. The second one is that Peru has the second deepest canyon in the world. The first one is in Tibet. And this canyon is called Colca. Okay, and why is so known? Because of the condor. The condor, and that's the condor is the world's largest bird. And the condor has a wingspan of 14 feet and are about 4 feet high. And I have seen the Colca Canyon and the condors in front of my eyes. What an unbelievable bird that is. Also, Peru has the world's highest navigable lake, Lake Titicaca. Part of it is in Bolivia and 3/4 in Peru. Lake Titicaca at more than 2,500 feet above sea level is quite amazing. And I also have had the pleasure to see that. According to an Andean legend, it was the cradle of the bird, of birthplace of the first Inca. Who's heard of the Nazca Lines? My goodness, the Nazca Lines are very mysterious. It's the subject of mystery for about 80 years. How would they form? What purpose could they have served? Were there aliens involved? You can only see these lines from above. So you have to go on a heli or on a little plane to see them. And I have. So, all of this after I left my dear Peru. The next one is, of course, all of you most likely would know about that Peru is the home of majestic Machu Picchu, beautiful Machu Picchu. Even though I have traveled to many, many countries, I've been fortunate to do that. And I love seeing every part in the world. I also love to see Machu Picchu. When I first see it, every time I go, I just get the chills because it is so beautiful, so grand, so majestic. Okay, and the last one, that it is the reason of this PowerPoint is that the rich biodiversity it's in Peru. We share that with Brazil. Okay, Brazil and Peru are so diverse, rich biodiversity from its very geography. For Peru, that is, ranging from the arid coast to the high Andes mountains to the Amazon rainforest, the part that we share with Brazil. Okay, so Peru is right there. That's, I think, coming in the next slide, or if you press the next, it will tell you Peru is here on that, well, on that pink little country right there. It borders with Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, Colombia, and Ecuador. Okay, next slide, please. Lima is the capital, and it's extremely beautiful colonial. This is the on the left is the government palace, on the right the same. And look at the beautiful colonial buildings. This is a beautiful part of the plaza. Next. Yeah, another view of Lima, 10 million people in Lima. It's not fun to drive there. I would not recommend that. Next slide, please. And this is my beautiful hometown. I was born in Trujillo. Trujillo is right on the Pacific. Well, Lima is also on the Pacific. So it's on the coast of Peru. All the buildings in the main plaza are very colonial. Look at these little beautiful windows they have them. By the way, my house was only a block away from here where I was born. So I used to cross this big square to go to my high school. Okay, this down on the left-hand side is Chan Chan, one of the pre-culture, culture Chimu. That's the adobe city pre-Inca. But what I want to tell you is the second one, the one in the middle. The one on the middle, I don't know how to explain. When I was in middle school and elementary school, middle school, they used to take us on field trips, right? To the Indian mounds, field trips to the Indian mounds. Well, listen, many years later, I'm already a college graduate. I come back to Peru, and all of this beautiful pre-Inca walls, all beautiful reds and oranges and colors, where underneath they keep discovering more floors every year. This is the fifth. So every time I go, it seems like there is one underneath. Okay, I could not stop from crying when I first landed there. I'm thinking, oh my God, there's a world underneath, or there was a world underneath, and I had no idea. Okay, Peru is just that way. It's almost, you know, there something underneath in many of the places, cultures that they're still discovering. So Machu Picchu is the pride, but there's so much that you don't know and you're walking, or what you're walking on. The right picture is Huanchaco. That's the beach that I used to go and bathe and suntan with huge waves. Okay, this is a Caballito de Totora. That is how all, even now, they do their fishing. They jump on this reef little boat, and they go on fishing. My husband would love to jump on all of that because he loves to fish. Next slide, please. So this takes me to the next, because look at that, how big the waves are. So Huanchaco is one of the cradles for for doing the sport right here that you see in front of you, surfing. Okay, so all of this is the coast. Next slide, please. And also, sandboarding is a huge sport in the coast. And guys, this is what I was talking about, the Nazca Lines. The Nazca Lines you could not see unless you're flying over them. This is the hummingbird on the bottom. I'm not sure what this is, but there's a hummingbird and the monkey and the astronaut and the bird, and amazing. We still do not know how was that. So that remains the big mystery. We know more about Machu Picchu than we know about the Nazca Lines. Next slide, please. Here are the beautiful Andes Mountains. Pictures are better than words, correct? Next slide, please. Now this is the bringing you back to the interesting facts. Lake Titicaca. Lake Titicaca is amazing. These people live on the water, just because this is the world's highest, highest and most navigable lake. They have their whole community there. And it's of course a huge interesting place to go see. I'm taking a group to Peru this June, unbelievably, after 2 years, and we are visiting Lake Titicaca. Okay, next, please. That they're called the Uras, yeah. And of course, the third, we've gone through the coast, we've touched on the mountains, and now this is the beautiful Amazon jungle. Words are only just words, but pictures are better. Next slide, please. More, yes, more beautiful. And because we are so diverse, there is beautiful flora, beautiful fauna. Click, beautiful pictures. I mean, we have a place that there's hundreds and hundreds of orchid species, and that is in Machu Picchu Pueblo in Cusco. Next, please. The next is just for your pleasure. Next slide is more beautiful. And the fauna, okay? This is happening in the different areas happening. I mean, you find these birds in the coast, primarily the mountains. And next slide, please. And you find this in the mountains. We talked about the condor on the left-hand side. Here is on right, I wish I could point out, this is the llama, this is the alpaca in the middle, and to the right, we have the vicuñas, and this is the majestic condor, okay? You've heard of the llama, alpaca, and vicuña, beautiful birds and animals here. Next slide, please. There's a lot of culture in Peru, and this is again special to me because on the left and on the right, this is the club where my family and I used to go for parties and etc. And you see this dance. This dance is the national dance of Peru called marinera, but it was it started in my hometown. So every year there is an international festival of the marinera dance. And this is some Afro-Peruvian picture right here. And Peru is also the home of beautiful Paso Fino horses. But what is neat is that the Paso Fino horses dance with a girl, and they become the man, and the girl becomes the marinera dancers, and they intertwine and they go around dancing beautifully. Next slide. Okay, now we've gone from the coast back to the mountains. This is the Inti Raymi Festival, a celebration of the Inti, celebration of the sun done by the Inca, and it happens in Cusco every single year on June 24th. Next, please. This is in the jungle. We have a lot of different tribes in the jungle. I have been to Manu, so that's my jungle experience. That was the dance, my jungle experience. Manu, amazing. I don't know that I would go back to the dense forest, but the birds were amazing. Next, please. Okay, so a little bit of pre-Inca, and this takes you back to everything that I've said before, and it's beginning to tie things together. This is an example of the Pre-Inca civilization. Next, please. And Peru, of course, the land of the Incas, is known by many. Okay, this is Cusco. This is Machu Picchu, beautiful Machu Picchu. Amazing. I mean, words do not begin to even describe the beauty of this place. Next slide, please. And this is when I wanted to take you to this video. It's very, very short, but it tells you about Machu Picchu.
Most fascinating archaeological sites on the planet. Look. Located northwest of Cusco, Peru, Machu Picchu is a testament to the power and ingenuity of the Inca people.
Oh.
During its prime, the Inca civilization.
Can we all see the video and hear the sound? Okay.
We don't see the video, but we hear the sound.
Gotcha. What about now?
Yeah.
The stone city of Machu Picchu is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites on the planet. Located northwest of Cusco, Peru, Machu Picchu is a testament to the power and ingenuity of the Inca people. During its prime, the Inca civilization stretched about 2,500 miles along South America's Pacific coastline, from modern-day Ecuador down into Chile. This distance is nearly the horizontal width of the continental United States. Machu Picchu, located at the center of this once expansive empire, is one of the few well-preserved remnants of the Inca civilization. Built around the mid-15th century, Machu Picchu is a stunning example of the Incas' engineering feats. The Inca constructed Machu Picchu's palaces, temples, terraces, and infrastructure using stone, and without the help of wheels or tools made of steel or iron. One particularly notable aspect of their construction is foregoing the use of mortar, a material often used to bind stones together. Nonetheless, the stones of Machu Picchu were cut so precisely that they snugly fit together. Located on two fault lines, Machu Picchu often experiences earthquakes, but because of the stone's exceptional cut and fit, they bounce during tremors and then are able to easily fall back into position. These engineering marvels have preserved Machu Picchu's remarkable condition for over 500 years. Machu Picchu's purpose is still a mystery to many archaeologists. Some theorize that it may have served as a ceremonial site, a military stronghold, or a retreat for nobility. The site's geographic layout may be significant in another way. Many of both the man-made and natural structures appear to align with astronomical events. But in the early 16th century, only about 100 years after it was built, Machu Picchu was abandoned. And since the Inca had no written language, no records exist to explain the exact purpose of the site. Although local communities knew about Machu Picchu, the site remained largely unknown to the outside world for hundreds of years. Spanish conquistadors who invaded the Inca civilization in the 16th century never came across the site. It wasn't until the early 20th century when Melchor Arteaga, a local farmer, debuted Machu Picchu to outsiders when he led Yale University professor Hiram Bingham to the site. Bingham and successive explorers devoted much of their academic careers to studying the archaeological wonder. Despite its enigmatic nature, Machu Picchu still stands as one of the world's most important archaeological sites. It is a testament to the power and ingenuity of one of the largest empires in the Americas. In 1983, UNESCO designated Machu Picchu as a World Heritage Site, and today, visitors from around the world come to pay homage to this piece of history.
And I think that we missed the very, very beginning where it said they didn't have the wheel. So how did they bring the stones all the way to the mountain? That is just something that, you know, we can't understand. So yes. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And the food, oh my goodness, of course, the Peruvian food. Perhaps you have heard how wonderful Peruvian food is. Perhaps you haven't, but Peru keeps winning culinary contests, world here and there, and it's now a foodie's destination. Well, it has become, you know, a place to go for the food, not just Machu Picchu in the last 10 years. Okay, and next slide, please. And of course, here's the gift to the world is the potato, right? Taking us back to the very beginning. And next slide, please. Yes, there are so many varieties. Actually, it's 4,000, not 3,000. Okay, next, please. And this is a national drink. It's Pisco. And, you know, I don't make it from scratch. I just cheat and buy the little, you know, the little envelopes, the mixes. And on the right is the corn, the chicha morada, which is also a corn drink, you know, from Peru. So I think this takes me to the almost the end of the presentation. I wanted to show you a picture of my beautiful family there. That's when my mother was still with us, beautiful lady in the blue. So here it is from my family to yours. And we hope that you could visit Machu Picchu sometime. And yes, the next slide will take you to my saying thank you so much for having joined me. And that's me on the bottom. Yes, beautiful Machu
I'm so
Picchu.
sorry.
Not a problem. Anyway, so yeah, talking about the food, which was the last of basically the last slide, I have to confess, I'm not a cook. Okay. I love to make, I love to make and bake things, but I don't know how to cook. I was telling my husband we need to make ceviche because he's a fisherman and we need to do that soon. But I have to admit that I didn't want to share something that I had not made, right? And something that comes, you know, to always to mind about me having always done it and always people liking is a flan, but it's not originally from Peru per se. It's called Spanish flan, and the I have a little trick to it, but I think we're going to show how to make it, and then I'll tell you my little secret to make it even crispier. So with that, having said all that, with all the attention that I've gotten, thank you so much. We need to now go on to our amazing chef, Jessie.
Thank you so much.
I don't know at what point, you know, you want to ask any questions. I don't know. That's up to you. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Betty. I feel like when you share those things, I can feel the passion, enthusiasm,
Yes.
and you make me miss my country too. And with so many pictures, I can see how much you love your country. And it's such a beautiful presentation and share. Thank you so much. And my apologies for the technician issues. But let's see, our chef Jesse is waiting for us with his signature hat.
Hey, hey, Young. Hi, Betty.
Hey.
Thanks so much for that presentation. That was awesome. I definitely would like to get down to Peru one day and to experience some of that, you know, new cuisine in Lima, for sure. Today, welcome everyone to the Globe Kitchen here. We're wrapping things up on virtual coffee hour, so this is one of our last ones. Please come next week and join it for our very last one. It's been great, but yeah, we'll do some more of that stuff next week. So today, yeah, we've got flan, and flan is one of my very favorite desserts. It's so kind of versatile. You can make so many different flavors with it. And today we're going to do a variation called Flan de Queso. So we're going to add some cheese to it. And so the final texture is going to kind of be a little bit more dense, a little more rich than your kind of normal flan. And it's really outstanding. I made one yesterday and gave it a try, and my first batch already got, you know, ate up by a bunch of people. So I think it's a winner. All right, so it's honestly really, really easy. There's just a couple techniques that you need to know about. And the stumbling block for most people is making the caramel. And so I'm going to go through step by step with the caramel for you and you know, show you how to do it. I've tried to narrow it down to make it as easy as possible so you can do this at home, because this kind of dessert will really impress your friends and family. And it's really something easy you can you know, bust out for, you know, holidays or special occasions, and, you know, really wow a crowd. So let's go through the ingredients first. right here, I've just got a little bit of water. I'm gonna measure that out with just a little dish of water. I got 1 cup of white sugar. I've got 1 package, 8-ounce package of cream cheese. I've got Philadelphia, but you could use what you'd like. I've got 1 can of evaporated milk, 1 can of condensed milk, and then I've got 6 eggs, but you can use 5 or 6 eggs. It's, if you got extra large eggs, definitely just do 5. If you got large, you can do 6, 5 or 6. And then I've got a little bit of vanilla. And so I'll get a little bit into the pans here that you can use. I've got a couple different ones. I really like making my flan in a bundt pan. It's really awesome because when it cooks, it will cook from the center and the outside. So you get a really, really perfect cooking on this, and the texture is just, outstanding. And then you can also do it in a square pan. There's like a 9x9. And as you can see, there's no center hole. So the center is going to cook last. And so the outside edges, in order to get that center cooked well, you kind of have to overcook the outside edge just a tad bit. Doesn't really take away much from the final dish, but if you're looking for excellence, the bundt pan is really the way to go. And then you can also use like a circular pan, a 9-inch circular pan. Any of these work for this recipe. All right, so let's get into this caramel. So what I'm gonna do is I've got a nice, like kind of thick bottom saucepan, and this one's high-sided. It doesn't have to be so high. It can be more shallow, like a 2-quart saucepan would be fine. And I'm gonna gently pour my sugar in and just spread it out. Now I'm gonna get a tablespoon, and I'm going to put 4 tablespoons of water in here, and I'm gonna try to spread it out so that it gets coated on most of this water. Or sorry, most of this sugar. Doesn't have to be perfect. It'll kind of go on its own as we heat it up, but I'm definitely trying to get the edges. And it's just enough water to kind of moisten it. There's a lot of different techniques out there how to make caramel. This one to me is the easiest. We add the water so it helps the process of melting the sugar evenly. And I only want to add as much water as we have to add. I'm not trying to add any extra because it's going to take longer to cook. And the longer you're cooking it, the more likely you're going to run into problems. So let's take this over to the stove. And I'm going to turn this on high right now. And I'm going to turn it down to about a medium high. And when you're making caramel, another part about it is you don't want to walk away from it. Like even in the beginning here, we want to be here kind of watching the process as it goes here, because once it does heat up and that water evaporates off, the sugar, the molten sugar itself is going to heat up past 212 degrees. So it's going to start heating up and heating up. And caramel is basically a early stage of burning the sugar, the molten sugar. And so you really got to watch it closely because it can turn burnt and like acrid, like in an instant, especially if you're doing it on a higher temperature. And so temperature management with this is very important. If you see that the edge is starting to turn an amber color, you want to readjust your pan and kind of hang that edge that's cooking faster, into a cooler spot. So you can adjust your pan so it's, that edge is not going to be directly over flame. Or if you're using like an electric stove, you would hang that edge over the edge of your coil so that it's not on direct heat. So you see how that, right now that water spread out and it's melting all that sugar. The edges are bubbling, that's fine. And so my technique is I don't stir this at all. I don't do any stirring. I don't use any kind of spoon. This is just the heat management. And then once things get going, I will just kind of I'm going to grab the handle and we're just going to kind of do a little swirling action to finish it up. And actually making this amount of caramel, just like 1 cup, this is tougher than making a big batch. Like usually if I'm making caramel, I would fill this pot up halfway with caramel. If I'm making flan for coffee hour, we're making like, a 20, huge amount of pans, 20, 30 pans of this. So, I'm making lots and lots of caramel. And it's a little bit more, I don't know, easier to handle a large amount because things happen a little bit more slowly. With this, everything's very quick. So while it's going here, I can kind of talk a little bit about some of the history of flan. I was Betty was saying how it's originally from Spain, and she wasn't sure how, how connected to Peru it really was, or I guess Peru can't really claim it as an original, and that's
No, no, no. I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, it's.
You're unmuted, yeah.
Oh, okay. No, we don't claim it as Peruvian, not at all. No.
Right. So flan is Spain's national dessert, actually, and I was interested in kind of tracing back to see where flan was, where its origins really laid, and it was pretty interesting to find out. Like the form that we see now, is pretty similar to the traditional Spanish one, but it goes all the way back to Roman times. There's a dish called flago, and it was eggs and milk that were baked together, and they would add honey. So they didn't have sugar, and so they didn't do a caramel thing to it. But the Romans actually kind of started off this whole baked custard thing, and then it definitely spread throughout the Roman world back then, and into what is Spain now. And what I could tell, some things, when the Moors came and took over the southern part and part, a lot of what is Spain now, they brought sugar with them. And so what it looks like is that they may have been some of the first people to actually make the version that we know now, with that caramelized sugar as the base and then the custard on top. So most of my stuff that I was reading about for this, it's not like verified sources. So, I'm not 100% on this, but this is, after doing some internet sleuthing, this looks like a good bet, but sure, there is a lot of debate about origins of food. But I mean, this, the Moors were in control of that area in like 700 AD or so. So, I mean, this is an ancient food. Like, this has gone through, many different peoples to get to the point that we have it now, right? So the Latin American flan is distinct from Spanish flan because they use canned condensed milk and canned evaporated milk. And that is one thing that's pretty much across all Latin American flans that I've seen, is nobody ever uses fresh milk. And in Spanish flan, I've never seen anybody that uses canned milk for Spanish flan. Everybody always uses fresh milk, eggs, and egg yolks. So to me, they're, the techniques and the dishes is, very similar, but the ingredients are different, and it does produce a different texture and flavor in the end. So, to me, it's really fascinating to see a dish just come through the ages and seeing how it evolves, and how, in some places it's a tradition and it's very rigid in how it's supposed to be. And then, other people pick it up and change it and evolve it. And it's just fascinating that people have been eating this for thousands of years. All right, so check this out. We got a little bit of caramelization up here on the edge here. And so that's a little hot. And so I'm gonna hang that over the edge. And right now I'm still going on my medium high heat. And so what's happened is that, obviously it's boiling, and that water is boiling off. And in that process, the sugar melts and then it starts to recrystallize. And so you can see it looks kind of cloudy, a little bit kind of crystally. So as that water boils off and the temperature rises above 212 degrees, I'm not exactly sure what exact temperature that it gets to, but it will get to a point where we will get that amber color throughout, and the whole molten sugar will become glossy and amber. And then we're going to kind of turn down the heat there and slowly bring the color a little bit deeper until we're happy with it. And then we're gonna pour it directly into our pan. So if you're making this at home, I really want you to be very careful, because the temperature of this sugar is, well over 212 degrees. I mean, we're talking about 400, 500 degrees probably for the sugar when it's fully caramelized. And if you accidentally spill it on yourself or anything like that, it will burn you incredibly, incredibly bad. Because not only is it that hot, is that as the sugar sticks to your skin, it turns into like a thick syrup and it'll stick to you, and then you have to pull it off your skin. It's pretty tough. So just be really careful if you're gonna make it. It's worth the trouble.
Jesse, sorry to interrupt. It seems like there is a heat discussion about how to make caramel, especially from Gaurav. He seems to bump into some questions, so I'm gonna ask him to ask you.
Yeah. Put Gaurav on.
Hi, Jesse. So I'm pretty bad at making caramel, and I don't know about other people on the call, but when I put the water in and then boil the caramel, the water just evaporates and all that remains is like a powder. And I keep adding more water, and then again the water evaporates, and it just keeps going on and on. I don't know if I'm using the wrong sugar or like the wrong temperature. Like I keep stirring it and you're not stirring it, so maybe that's the key.
Yeah, I don't stir. I know Betty said that she stirs, and so she likes to stir.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I keep.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I wanted it to go faster.
Yeah, everybody kind of works out their own techniques, right? And trial and error, you figure out your way, and you make it work. What it could be is it could be a temperature thing. You're not doing it hot enough, so the sugar is not getting hot enough to caramelize and then melt.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm trying to think of what else it could be. I mean, you just use plain white granulated sugar. You don't want to. Powdered sugar is not going to work because they add cornstarch to that. So you can't use powdered sugar. Or
brown sugar. White sugar is the best.
Yeah. So you see on those amber edges how it's getting kind of clear, and that's just a temperature gradient. In the center, it's cooler. On the outside, it's hotter. And so I'm just going to kind of swirl it around to help melt that inside. Mix the amber color syrup in it.
Beautiful, Jesse. Woo.
Yeah, you're just gonna be real gentle with it. You don't want it to pop out of the pan or anything.
And burn you.
Right. That's a catastrophic event. So I'm just gonna keep going with it. And I'm up on medium high heat. And for me, a medium high heat, this is a commercial burner. So I mean, this is probably pretty high on a household burner. And then, it's helpful if you have a hood vent too, because this does smoke. This will be smoking to a certain degree because this is like kind of like burning the sugar. Okay. All right, now I'm going to turn it down. So I've got like a full melting here. It's starting to foam. I'm going to turn it down. And I'm going to finish this off on kind of a more like a medium low heat. Not too low. My burner went out. Okay. There we go. I've got my pan ready. You want your pan to be dry. Oop, there we go. Nice and dry, clean, ready to go. And you want to have it pretty close by here. And so also the darkness of your caramel is somewhat of a personal taste. I like to take it all the way to the edge and make it as dark as I can without burning it.
Right.
Some people like it a little more blonde, and that's, it's really a personal taste. I really like the kind of intensity of that, I don't know, kind of, I don't want to say acrid, but that kind of burnt flavor of that caramel with the richness of the custard is just, to me, is what's really makes the dish. All right, this is looking good. So you see it's all foamy, that is good to go. You can kind of let that foam settle for a second here.
Yeah.
We'll pour it in. You can just stay here. I'll put that there.
Yeah.
Got a good shot. All right, so here we go. It's still foaming pretty good, but I'm just gonna go for it. And we're just gonna pour the whole thing into the bottom of this pan. And that is going to be our caramel base. And what's strange to a lot of people is, a lot of people think you put a caramel sauce on top of this. And what, this is just sugar. And so once it cools, it's going to turn rock hard like a caramel hard candy. And wow, it heats up the pan pretty good too. And then so we're gonna let this cool, see the foam dissipating, and then you just get a very glossy, pure, kind of candy looking for this caramel. And so while this is cooling, we don't need it to cool fully, but we need it to cool enough that it solidifies. And so we'll just let it hang out there. I'm gonna wash this real quick.
Yeah. You can also use a Pyrex dish. That's usually what I use. And, you know, I try to pour, oh, in a minute, he's gonna pour it and flip it. But, you know, it's also nice on a Pyrex dish because you can see the whole thing that you see right now on the edges, you know, and then it's, but anyway, it looks great, Jesse.
Oh, thank you. All right, so flan de queso, we're gonna put the whole cream cheese in. Oops. I'm just gonna use this pitcher to mix it in so y'all can see it. You could use a bowl, or you could blend in a blender too. So you're just loading up a blender pitcher.
Right.
A whole can of evaporated milk. All right. I'm gonna pour the 6 eggs in. Boom. And this condensed milk will take me a second to get out. Condensed milk can be a bit interesting to get out of the can. I always tried to find these little, you know, spatulas that I can fit in here, but they always end up getting cut up and messed up. And so I just honestly use like a butter knife or like a little spoon. And if I'm doing a lot of this, I always set all the cans. I'll do one pass and I'll scoop as much out as I can, and then I set the cans to the side, and all of it will go down to the bottom. I can get another tablespoon out usually out of each one. All right, anyways, here we go. And then we got about a tablespoon, 2 teaspoons. If you like vanilla, you can put a little more. 2 teaspoons. There we go. Then I'm gonna use a little stick blender for this. So one trick too is definitely to have all of your batter ingredients at room temperature. So your cream cheese, you really want to have that at room temperature. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to blend up. All right, quick blend. Pop this in the sink. All right, one other thing is I always pass this through a strainer just in case we got a shell in there. That would really mess up your texture. And just if there's any like random chunks of cream cheese too, we'll just make sure we filter out anything. All right, let's look at this. All right, woo, that is hot. So check this out. Now, oh, it's moving. I thought it was more solid than that. All right, so one other thing you can do is you can kind of roll it around the side.
Right.
You can get a little edge too.
That's what
That's
I was
definitely
thinking.
helpful. Because the caramel is flavor, but it's also function. So it keeps the custard from sticking to the bottom. And you're gonna pour your batter on top of this once it hardens. And mine's not hard yet. I made this one extra hot. And so it'll get hard like candy, but you're going to pour the batter on. It's all going to bake together in what we call a Bain-Marie. So here's the other technique that's necessary to make this. You're going to need another pan with a fair amount of water in it. Well, I got about 1 inch of water in here. You want basically enough water to mostly reach the level of how much flan batter is in your flan pan. So one way we could do that is add the water ahead of time, because I know how much it needs, or you could have a bigger pan that you put your pan in and then add your water afterwards. once you put your flan pan in. So this thing's not solid yet. You know what I'm gonna do? So if you need to cool down something fast, the best way to do that is just put it in some water. That water will help cool it down a little bit faster. There we go. All right, that's good enough. Okay. Oh, Laura, thank you. I almost forgot my strainer. So here we go. I'm gonna pour this on top. See, there's a couple little cream cheese chunks in there. All right, so from here, I'm just gonna slip this into an oven that's 350 degrees. And we're gonna bake it for an hour. And then basically you can check it at 45 minutes if you want. And what I do is I'll pull the pan out of the water pan and kind of give it a little jiggle. You want it to be somewhat jiggly still. You don't want it to be solid. If it's solid, it's cooked too much. You want to pull it out, 10 minutes before you think you probably should, because then it'll keep cooking, and then it sets up overnight in the fridge. So you want it to look a little undercooked. Here we go. I'm gonna put it. All right. That oven didn't seem like it was on. I'll mess around with that later. All right, so I've got one here I'm gonna unmold for you, and we'll take a slice a piece, and then we'll let you all get into your breakout rooms and hang out. I made one in the bundt pan for our picture, I think it's on Facebook, and then I made this one in our square pan to unmold for you, and this part's fun. So you need a platter that your pan's gonna fit in well. So when you flip it, all that caramel, or a lot of that caramel, is going to be turned to liquid. And so it's going to pour out over top. And then, so what we're going to do is cut around the edge. And loosen it up a little bit. And I'm going to go all the way down. Yep. I like to see a little bit of that caramel sauce coming through, and I know it's going to help loosen it up and not kind of re-stick. All right, so here we go. So you get it positioned, and then voila. There we go. So you see there's extra caramel down there. It keeps it from sticking, but as it cooks and then as it sets up overnight, the custard part melts that caramel, that hard candy, into a sauce, but it also imprints the flavor in the top of it as well. So every single bite is going to have that delicious caramel flavor in each one. All right, so what should we do here? I don't know if I like square pieces of flan, but do a nice. This flan de queso, the texture is more dense than a typical flan, so it is more like a cross between a cheesecake and flan. There we go. There we go. And then we can tilt the tray. Always tilt the tray, get a little more sauce. Add a little more caramel to it. And there you have it. Your very own flan de queso.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this, Betty. This is an old family recipe, right?
Yeah. Can I give them my little secret?
Yes, please.
Okay. I had done this many times, and one time I was taking it to somebody's house, and by the time I got to the house, the flan was, it kind of was not flan anymore. I don't know what it was, soup. So since then, I started thinking, hey, I'm just going to make the flan earlier, much earlier, and put it in the refrigerator. And then that might not work that well. I put it in the freezer. Okay, so I usually put it in the freezer, and about an hour and a half before I want to serve it, I put it in, get it out of the freezer into the refrigerator. So it just gives it a little crispy taste, and I love that. So it may not be your thing, but it is definitely not droopy, and the consistency, it's really, great. So, and to me, it tastes a little bit better. So that was my little secret. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking for a very smooth texture. If you get a lot of bubbles, what happens when you overcook flan is it kind of curdles the egg. So it
Right.
ends up being more like scrambled egg, sweet scrambled egg, and it really ruins the texture. So they're really, if you have bubbles, they should only be on the very edge. They shouldn't be on the inside. And so it should just be this very creamy, smooth texture. And honestly, flan de queso is a great flan to start with because that cream cheese has stabilizers in it that are going to help prevent it from overcook. Even if you cook it a little bit too much, it's going to be okay. When you're just, especially the Spanish version, is super, super delicate. They add it's egg yolks, and just whole milk. And that is very, very, very easy to overcook that and turn it into scrambled eggs. So anyways, thank you all for joining us today. This is kind of a good in-depth coffee hour. We look forward to seeing you as soon as we can, and hope you all have a great weekend.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, Becky. I am gonna